Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Finance and General Purposes Committee on the 13th of February 2018. And first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, please.
Have any apologies?
No apologies, and nobody is missing, so there's no apologies to receive or to accept. Moving on to 1745, declarations of interest. To receive and consider any declarations of interest from members and officers under Section 50 of the Local Government Act 2000 and our Standing Order 35. This requirement applies only in respect of matters which are to be considered by the Council at this meeting. 4501, to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests. No. 4502, to declare any other interests. Councillor Chappell.
My wife again.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
a member of the Anglin District Care Committee.
I see she's the representative for our village.
She is.
So that interest is noted. 1746, representations from interested parties.
No, I haven't had anything.
None received. So we move on to 1747, consideration of requests. Having had none, we've none to consider. 1748, minutes of previous meetings, finance and general purpose. 4801, proposition to approve and sign the minutes of the finance and general purpose meeting held on the 9th of January 2018 as an accurate record, our Standing Order 10C. You've all got them in your pack. I've got a proposer from Councillor Glenn, seconder Councillor Peel. Those in favour? That's everybody. Did you want me to sign your
Yes, that's a
copy of it? Date is the 13th, isn't it?
Just remember what date it is tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the important.
Just stupid in a way, but there was an item about the NatWest Bank on here. I have an account there.
Right.
Matters.
You want to declare that as an interest. I think we should all declare an interest in actual fact because the council has accounts there and we should probably, we've all missed that one, we should all declare an interest in that we are all councillors and the council has a bank account with the NatWest. So.
If you insist.
But I don't see the account of bank statements. I don't sign them, any cheques. I am not involved with that list at all.
You can see one if you want to.
I know. I don't bother.
Okay. Moving on then, 1749, financial matters. 4901, to consider the grant application from Anglin District Care. In your pack, you've got two documents relating to Anglin District Care. You've got their accounts and you've got their application for a grant.
Asterisk on that? Is that there for any reason?
Sorry?
There's an asterisk.
That's to say you've got a document in your pack.
Yes.
Yeah, but some of the things are not. We've had it there. No, maybe I'm wrong, actually. Okay, well, I've read it. We've given it to them last year, haven't we? We gave it to them last year. It's only £230 to a good organisation.
You also have a document in front of you which gives all the grants you've given them in the past.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if it matters, but I actually volunteered to pay that for if the council didn't.
We gave them 230 last year.
Do I have a proposer?
Yeah.
Councillor Glenn, seconder.
Well, I was actually just going to say that my recollection is that what we used to do, unusually for them, and I think almost exclusively for them, was that we always tended to grant them a sum of money that covered the cost of them hiring the QVH for all of their events. Now, £230 strikes me as a lot higher than I suspect the higher cost of the hall is.
To So you're suggesting it
Well,
should be less?
Well, I'm just making that observation, I'm not necessarily saying
Well,
it would be
really,
less.
it's the same.
If
That's
you look
later.
on the sheet that Paul put out, last year they had the full amount. The previous year they had 150. The year before that they had 150, and then it sort of goes back down to 100. And 2012 they only had 80.
Sounds like
Paul, you wouldn't know what they were
Well,
charging.
it's fine, that's
Paul, you wouldn't know, is that what we charged them last year, 230?
I thought we gave them last year,
You don't know what we charged them for use of the hall?
No, I don't know they used it that often.
Yeah, they tend to use it for the spring fair, don't they? That's about the only
I
time.
think they are an extremely good charitable organisation to the town. They do some extremely good work. Do we have a proposer for the 230?
Yeah,
Are we happy
If
to
I'd
go
actually
with?
read the covering letter, I would have seen what they said the 230 covered, which is not only the hire of the King Road, but also the cost of hiring a hall for 5 general meetings and 11 committee meetings during the year. So that's where we got it.
yeah. I've seen it.
I'll second it.
We've got a proposer from Councillor Glenn, seconder Councillor Chesser. All those in favour? That's everybody. Jolly good. 4202, to approve the expenditure for 2 strimmers and an inverter welder.
Yes.
That again is in your pack.
Yeah, this was from John. Apparently, he does quite a bit of welding on various things, and he uses his own welder, and it's quite heavy. He has to go and get it from his house, bring it down and use it. So he's asked whether we could purchase one, and then also the two strimmers that we've got need replacing.
Well, it's not a huge amount of money, but shouldn't we have more than one?
Can I just say, I actually looked on the internet
Yeah,
on prices on this. The welder,
yeah.
and this is only from Screwfix, I didn't bother to look
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah,
else,
yeah,
is £150
yeah.
instead of £224. And the strimmers, these are £296 each, because obviously there's 2 of them and there's only quoted for 1. The strimmers are only £108.33p on
What,
Screwfix.
the like for likes, exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah.
For the same
Well,
model.
Well,
I
if we
don't know
can
about the
get,
same model, but it's exactly the same
because they're the strimmers aren't your
No, these are petrol ones.
bog
so
standard
they can't
ones,
use obviously ones with plugs and things like
no,
that.
but yeah.
But handled ones with petrol.
Well, if we can get them anywhere cheaper, then we'll get them.
Well,
So if you said up
Yeah.
to,
up to, yes, if we propose to approve the expenditure for 2 strimmers and an inverter up to the figure, whatever that total is for those 3 items, we
And
can.
I'll do a search
Just
on the
have a
internet.
quick look on Screwfix, and it was exactly the same 525k up straight. But I mean, they're like £296 each, and these were £108.33p. I mean, obviously plus that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I just looked on Screwfix, didn't bother to look anywhere else.
we've proposed, or somebody else, have they? Shall I propose it?
Yeah,
Up to?
Councillor
yeah.
Chesser's
Well, I'll
proposal.
do a search. You know, I'll just
Yeah.
see where
Seconder
it's
from-
cheapest place.
Councillor Chapel, those in favour? I don't know what the figure is that we're going up to, because
Well,
I
if
didn't
you
quickly add it. I wasn't sure if that was for 1 strimmer shown on that quote or 2.
Quite clear, right?
We want to, but I'm not sure if that is.
But it just says one strimmer, it just
Yeah.
says strimmers. You know, if
yeah,
it does,
that
then
is one
obviously-
strimmer. That one.
Yeah.
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 As I say, the strimmer I looked at was exactly the same code, with obviously petrol driven because it has to be, and it was £108.33p.
Okay.
You've got £710.40, am I right there? £710.40 for the strimmers, and then 268.80 for the inverter.
Just seems a bit expensive, that's all. That's why
Well,
I just
Yeah, I
looked
think
at
he
it.
did well. He obviously just went to.
So we're approving
No, I
it
can
up to-
understand
up to
trying
that
to nip
figure.
across the road.
Doesn't matter if we're doing up to.
No,
Yeah, I mean, I'll just do a search and do a comparing.
Yeah. that's fine, yep.
Sorry, did we have a proposer and seconder on that?
Proposer was Councillor Chesser, seconder was Councillor Chapel, and it was agreed by everybody, so
So, approve the expenditure up to, what did you say?
well, I didn't finish adding it up.
97924, I think those 2 figures. 710.44 and 268.8. Well, those are two figures.
Is that for all of them?
Yeah, that's for the whole three items.
979.24.
Okay. So we'll say up to that.
Yeah.
I'll have a look and then I'll just send you an email just to tell you how much it's going to be.
Right. Okay, 4203. To consider the NatWest Community Bank Initiative at Fletton House and the role of the community banker. I've got a meeting coming up very shortly on this. I'm waiting to hear exactly when it is, but it's apparently going to happen very shortly, and it's something that's been arranged by Tom Perscroft. But I think you've got all the information.
Yeah, I've got
on this.
a guy that the actual community banker who's I've contacted. Well, they contacted me first, and I've left him a message to come and have a look round Fletton to see if it's suitable, find out a bit more about it. I've emailed him, he hasn't come back to me. I was hoping to have something to be able to tell you which night, but he hasn't come back.
Sorry, what is a community bank? What's the role?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a bank, because originally I thought when Tom Perscroft's secretary said about it, I thought, oh, they're going to want to put a little bank in or something once a month or once a week. And then he said, it's an initiative, so I think it's if people want advice maybe, or help with stuff. They just want to look to see whether they can rent a room.
Yeah.
So,
And they're providing staff.
somebody would just come along from NatWest, I think.
Can I go slightly on from that? I mean, pretty soon we're not going to have banks in Oundle.
No.
Shouldn't we sort of look at possibly putting in some sort of community savings stroke bank run by the council or the people of Oundle? Something to a credit union?
I don't know who the council can do that.
Can you stop doing that?
Sorry. Well, the trouble is, David, is pretty soon the older generation of this town are not going to go, unless it's the post office, and we're not sure how long post office is going to be open now, are not going to be able to actually go and get cash anywhere. You know, because they're even thinking about closing the cash machines because they're not profitable anymore.
Well, it's going to get tough for business in town, especially things like the markets where they're taking a lot of cash. They're not going to want to drive home with that money in their pockets and risk getting mugged on the way. They're wanting to put that money into a bank before they go home. They want to get change during the day. If they're running a cash business, they need to go and exchange notes for cash or vice versa, depending on the type of business. And they need those facilities, especially on market days. So we really need some sort of bank. When we had the Christmas market, Councillor Chesser and I were going round the various stallholders, and somebody came up to us from another council. I've got his details. I emailed him straight after the Christmas market.
I mean, like a long way
Yeah.
Yeah, he was from near Stroud, but I can't remember the name of the actual town.
Eastleigh or Westley or something.
Something like that. A town similar size to us, very similar to us. They'd just lost all their banks, and their library service had gone, so we had a lot in common, and we agreed to keep in touch. I've emailed him, but he's not replied, so I shall have to try again to get in touch with that council.
He has replied.
Has he?
Yeah, because I've got the reply.
I've not had it. Well, he's replied to you instead of me then.
Forward it on to the minutes.
Yeah, I read it tonight. I thought, oh, at last. Apparently your email had gone into some sort of a black hole. Or
right.
the equivalent, a black worm or some sort of a worm.
Right.
Wormhole. Wormhole.
Right.
I don't know all these terms. And
So-
there's a reply.
Good. Right.
Is there any about banks?
Well, no, it's sort of, it's a holding sort of letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, they
I'll get back in touch with him then, and
I just think it's something
I don't know why it came to me.
Arundel could do.
Yeah, but they had some scheme down there.
Yeah.
They had something that they were calling a community bank or something, weren't they?
Well, they were, the reply is mostly about the library situation.
Yes.
Because they'd found a way of, if you like, buying the library and setting it up as some kind of scheme. And so he's going to let you know about that.
Right.
So, yes, get back to him, because we're very similar sized places with
Yeah.
the same problem.
But he was also telling us about how they were getting around the fact they've got no banks.
Yeah.
And they have set up some kind of a bank in town. I don't know any of the details, but he was going to fill us in on all the details on it.
The details are not in the letter that,
Yeah.
that I've got. But,
I think we should look at that sort of thing, simply because the older generation needs somewhere to go.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that would really work out quite well if we had some sort of community bank here.
Yeah, it would. Yep. I think it would be most useful to have that kind of facility. As soon as my secretary, Councillor Chesser, passes on my correspondence, I'll reply, find out, and let you know.
How's Mount Wester going? Have we contacted Barclays to ask them if they will invest more time in the town?
No, they're the only time. I mean, they're 2 days a week now. They're definitely going, and
They're good.
basically, well, they're closed 2 days a week now anyway.
Yeah, but if that West isn't here, then they've got an opportunity for more customers.
They're not interested. I did have a chat with the ladies in Barclays.
yeah,
and
I
they were
know one or
told,
two
yeah.
people have written to as well.
Yeah. They were told that, you know, the possibilities are that there'll be a third day when they close.
Right. Well, it's on the way out then.
Sorry?
It's on the way out then.
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean, we know that, fortunately.
What about these younger, more aggressive banks you see popping up all the place?
It'd be nice if there's one in Peterborough now, isn't there? I can't remember.
Metro Bank.
The
Metro Bank, yes.
But you see, they're not going to come to town like this, are they? They're only interested in the bigger centres.
I'll follow up on this contact we've got with this other council and see what they're doing, because if they're a similar size to us with similar problems, then if they're that far ahead of us that they've solved these problems, we'll see what they've done.
It might be a good
And
idea to
report
ask
to the next
NALC.
meeting.
NALC as well.
Yes.
They'll be hearing from
Because I mean, a community bank stroke credit union would be ideal, really.
I don't know what the implications are for handling money and everything else from here.
But it's, I mean, there's lots and lots of towns got these things up and running now, all over the country. You know, and obviously you have to abide by the rules and regulations, etc., etc. But it is advantageous from a lot of communities to have them, and I just think that if we're going to lose banks, we've got to do something for, you know, most people now can go online and do things, but the older generation still like to have cash. They still like to go and sort of see somebody behind a window to pay their money in or get the pension out or something like that. They're not.
I understand that, but there's the cost of it as well. I don't know what the infrastructure costs.
Yes, no, there is a cost, obviously, but I mean, from what I've read, most of these places do actually pay for themselves and make profit and give that profit back to the community. Like an old-fashioned building society, if you like. Same difference. But it's like a building society. And it's run by the people rather than a society.
Okay. We'll find out more and come back to you. 4904, to approve the expenditure for 3 members of staff at £126 each to attend first aid training.
Yes, our health safety consultant said that we need somebody to be trained in first aid, and I think Hanneke was the first aid trained member of staff, but he said we possibly really ought to have somebody for the office, somebody in the hub, and somebody, one of the maintenance team, so
Right. Yep.
that's why there's a suggestion of 3.
No problem with that.
When's that going to be taking place, you know?
I haven't booked it yet. It's through the Red Cross.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they seem to be about the most.
Could you email me that? Because we've got to do the same in mine. I have no idea who to
Okay,
contact.
okay, yeah, I'll send you the details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant, thanks.
I'd like to propose it.
I'll second.
I've got a proposer, Councillor Chester, seconded Councillor Glenn. Those in favour? And that's everybody. 4905, to approve the expenditure for staff to receive fire warden training.
Yes, again, Hanneke was the fire warden, so we haven't got one at the moment. We've had all our basic training, but again, the suggestion is that we have 3, well, at least more than one person trained as a fire warden, just so that so long as there's always somebody here.
Well, we have to, but it'd be interesting to know how much we're talking about.
There's a guy that John, our health and safety person, recommended. He can train up to 15 people for £350. He'll come here and do it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, do we need to get somebody from the courthouse to come and sit in on that as well? Because I know they're all rented privately, but wouldn't it be a good idea to have one person or an organisation within there that knows
Could
what's
offer it to
going on?
us.
It cost us no more
No.
for them to come. One of the businesses or somebody from the museum to come up
Yeah, something like
would be useful.
How many people do you say we can get there? 15?
15.
Yeah, he said up to 15.
Every 10.
We may be able to get some of the local councils interested then in making up the numbers.
Make up the
Well,
numbers.
don't forget we've got Jones Strong as well. That they need to
Well,
come in.
it might be that one of the scout leaders or guide leaders might be interested. Sheila Pick is the contact there.
And if we're
Yeah.
going to have 15 people, we might as well just get people that are actually involved in
Absolutely,
it.
Yep.
fill the place.
So,
Yep.
So there's only about 20
Caretaker at QVH as well probably needs to be a fire warden, even though they're not one of our staff.
I think anybody linked with the council should
She,
be...
she doesn't spend any time there. You really need people who are in the, are going to be in the building.
Yeah, that's true.
Who are the fire wardens. So if there is a fire, then they will be the person that goes around and and does whatever the fire warden needs to
Well,
do.
when we rent the QVH out, is there anybody there that goes in there and sort of supervises?
No,
Nobody at all?
no, not even QVH.
There's a new practice manager, they might be interested. Even if it's only one person from the practice.
From next door, the surgeon.
right.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll,
it's worth asking round. I think if we've got 15 places, we're paying for it anyway, we might as well fill the course.
Is it worth contacting someone from GNS because they fill the place, don't they?
Sorry?
That's
Is
true.
it worth mentioning someone from GNS because when they do it, they fill the Victoria Hall?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Paul Weedman.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I haven't booked it yet with him, so I don't know when it's going to take place. I've got to speak to him about it. So.
GNS and or Oates.
Yeah.
Both of them fill the place with lots of people, so it might be maybe one
Yeah,
from each.
okay, yeah.
You've got some
I'll go
options
through,
there, haven't
yeah,
you?
I'll go through who's going to do it from our end, because obviously the more we get trained of our staff, the better it is for us.
Absolutely.
But there's always somebody here, and then whatever spaces we've got left.
Right. So you've given us the figure, so do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Peel, the seconder, Councillor Chappell, those in favour. And that's everybody. 4906, to approve the expenditure of £250 to brief a solicitor. This was mentioned at the last meeting, and the fee for that briefing will be £250. Do I have a
About 10
proposer?
minutes. About 10 minutes.
Is that a go at a certain solicitor who's present?
No, it's not. No, it's just generally solicitors. Every time I walk in there, it's £250.
Yeah, there's no zeros missing off the end. It is a very brief briefing, I will confess. Do I have a proposer?
Well, I suppose it really ought to be...
Councillor Chappell, a seconder. Councillor Peel, those in favour. That's everybody. 4907, to review expenses claims, including mileage allowances. Why I've included this one in there is the standard HMRC allowances for mileage are 45p per mile for the first however many miles, and it's a lot. I don't think we have anybody who
Something like 10,000.
qualifies.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It goes down to the lower figure, but the upper figure is, I think, 45p still. It's been that for a long while. The lower figure is 25p above that, which will be nobody, because nobody ever does that amount of mileage. But if we follow those, and I noticed that we pay a lesser amount than that for councillors and certain other people. We've been paying only, is it 40 pence a mile? So what I'm suggesting is that we ought to bring our charges in line with HMRC recommendation.
Make everything clear and simple.
I've already done mine.
You've already done yours?
I've already brought my own down.
You've already claimed less than you were before. Yeah.
The SLCC quotes 65p, doesn't it?
A long while ago, since 2012, they've been quoting 45 again.
Really?
And their recommendation since 2012 is that it's 45p because of the kind of complications. This extra 20p that they recommended at one time causes problems with PAYE and national insurance, or claiming on a P11D for the extra tax on that allowance. And some years back you'd have to pay it on the whole lot if you claimed more than 45p. You'd have to pay tax on the whole 65.
Yeah.
But that changed a few years back, and so their recommendation was to simplify it for clerks, that they changed over. They repeated that again in 2015, and they've sent it out again in the SLCC briefing that you showed me,
Yeah.
which is what made me think of this, and think this week we've never acted on it, that they've reenacted that one again this year, haven't they, in the SLCC briefing, to say that it should be 45p to avoid any of the complications on tax.
And that's councillors and staff.
Councillors and staff.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Why
assuming,
not? You
Doing
may as well
stuff
be
for
the same.
council,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
that's assuming I have a proposer and seconder from the
Yeah.
proposer, Councillor Glenn,
Yeah.
seconder, Councillor Chesser. Those in favour? That will simplify
Yeah.
matters there, I think.
Yeah, for the record, though, this meeting.
Are we allowed to vote for ourselves?
For ourselves,
Yes.
Well, it's just that
do
obviously.
you want us to declare an interest?
Well, I
That
think you'd have to.
we might get 45p out of it. We don't have to declare on this one anything over £50, but you do a lot of mileage for that.
Yeah.
Councillor Peel.
That's only 100 miles.
Just as a matter of interest, do we pay anything for carrying passengers? I mean, because things that I get the 45 for, I do for the county council, for instance, I get a bit more money for taking passengers, if I do take passengers.
No, I don't think so.
I've not seen that
No, I've
anywhere.
not seen that around.
I think let's not complicate the issue.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we'll do now, just to make it fair, right? Every passenger anybody carries, if they're working in the council or councillor, gets £1,000 per day.
Yes, you could do.
I think you might.
I don't have a proposer or seconder for that, physically. I'll move on swiftly to 4908 to review the Queen Victoria Hall VAT bank details. I believe what's been happening for some while is that the VAT refunds come into the council bank account and then are moved across, transferred.
Correct.
And I think to simplify matters, is there anything stopping us from having that money, just give different bank details to HMRC for the Queen Victoria Hall so that it goes into the Queen Victoria Hall bank account?
Yes, because there's one VAT number, and that VAT number covers OTC with their bank account, and you can't have a separate bank account attached to that VAT number, you can only have one.
Why have we only got one?
Because all the money, everything is routed through the town council's bank account. The letter that you've got from about VAT with the bank
Yeah,
account,
that's here,
the fourth paragraph, just after the Queen Victoria Hall, The second paragraph after that says, as sole trustee, the council is perfectly entitled to reclaim the trust VAT itself, whilst accounting for the sole trust output VAT on its own return. And then it goes into saying, this arrangement, however, makes for laborious calculations of the amount of VAT. It isn't actually that laborious, and that's how I do it. So I do a VAT return for London Town Council, a VAT return for Queen Victoria Hall, amalgamate the two together, and then that's where the VAT return is created from. All the money gets paid back into either town's council's bank account or paid out from, and then there's a transference of VAT once a quarter going backwards and forwards.
But we don't have a separate VAT registration then for the Queen Victoria Hall?
No, you don't need one.
We don't need one?
No, you don't need one. That was all agreed on this. It says here,
Which is a sole trustee.
it says on that paragraph, a sole trustee of the council is perfectly entitled to reclaim the trust VAT itself, whilst accounting for the trust output VAT on its own return.
Right.
And that's what I do. Because the alternative to that was moving down to the following paragraphs where you have a number of other options, which means you need to
I saw those,
set out grants and transfers of monies at the time.
Where we pay all the bills for the Queen Victoria Hall and then they pay us a...
So when it was discussed and it said it's laborious, the alternative was going to be far more complicated and far more onerous for Queen Victoria and the council and the council laws. So that was a knowing glance as we had this conversation with Derek from the accountants, the VAT expert, and that was what was decided. And I don't know whether it was decided at full council or a meeting, so I think Emma tried to look for
I did try to find the minutes, but I couldn't find anything that...
Right. Because the charitable trust is a different... I mean, yes, we are sole trustees as councillors, but I would have thought it was a separate concern. Although we've paid the staff costs until recent years, until it was contracted out or tupied out to forget the name of it, Clean for Shore. We used to pay the wages of the staff rather than have those handled separately.
But then we have a remuneration going from Adel Town Council to the Queen Victoria Hall effectively to subsidise that, which we still do.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What was the turnover of QBH last year?
About 12,000, rather than £12.
Well below the VAT.
The whole year. So if we separated it, excuse me, I might be making it. If we separated it, QBH wouldn't be registered with VAT because it's under the limit. So we're actually benefiting by keeping it in the town council.
Depends how much expenditure we've got in there and how much input costs we can save.
Well, the income is always lower than the expenditure, or has been up to now. So therefore we're always recovering VAT.
So therefore it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's worth keeping as a combined situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's quite clear from that first sentence. The sole trustee of the council is perfectly entitled to reclaim the trust VAT itself, whilst accounting for the trust output VAT on its own return.
Yes.
I must say, because I'm thick, I read all this and thought, oh yeah, that's right.
We agree on something, Bob.
Yes.
And it's something that when I was at another council, I investigated it and actually turned it round the other way. And that was with the internal auditor's advice as well. But since then, I've seen this and I've also... So whatever I told them probably
was wrong.
I'm glad we've discussed it then.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we've discussed it.
So shouldn't we just leave it as is then?
Might as well leave it as it is for now. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if the QBH started to do 110, 120,000, it might be
Still be above the limit, though, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
It would be above the limit.
That's what I'm saying. Then it might be a different kettle of fish because they could register in their own right.
But again, why would you need to register them in your own right? Because you're still reclaiming the VAT. Exactly.
Yeah.
You might as well just say as it is.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that was simple then.
Yeah, I was told that we had a separate VAT registration for the QBH, but if it's the same VAT registration number, then it's best to leave it as it is, because as you say, you can't have more than one, because they'd be confused as to which one they're paying it to
Yeah.
when they refund.
So when we raise a sales invoice for QBH, it's got our VAT number on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does, and it's the same one as OTC.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, well, I think there's nothing to do then. We've reviewed it and we've decided to leave it as it is. Do we need to vote on that? Do we leave it as it is? We're not changing anything. I think we can
No,
probably just
yeah,
move on. We've
yeah.
reviewed it. But that's clarified it. And then 4909 to review a review and examination of the VAT exemption certificates. We've got one for preschool.
Yeah.
And
Paragraph 2 and 3.
yeah,
Paragraph 2 saying rent of a building is normally exempt from VAT unless the owner has opted to tax the building, which we have. This is when they choose to charge VAT on the supply. If they do this, they then have to charge VAT unless the building is used by a charity for a relevant charitable purpose.
yeah,
And on the next paragraph, Fact Notice 742A, it covers used for a relevant charitable purpose.
yeah.
This has to be a non-business purpose. Preschool care of young children funded by the local authority is a non-business use.
It's not funded by the local authority, though, is it? Or is it?
What, the preschool? I think they get, it's like,
It's
they,
part
do they not
of
get
it,
money
yeah.
from the county council?
It's part funded, isn't it? That's what people pay
Do
fees.
they not get a certain
They
amount
pay
per
some-
child?
I think
Yes,
they're
they-
subsidised.
It's part
So
of their
it's
subsidised.
Mm.
It's the only one of its kind.
Yeah,
So it doesn't qualify.
Yeah, that's how I viewed it. Hence why when I raised the original invoice, I raised it with VAT on because we charged tax, we opted to charge tax from Fletton House.
yeah,
And then Judy came back with this. I read through this and thought, not sure, looked at all the details on the VAT site, which I emailed a copy to Emma tonight. She wants to read it out.
Oh,
It's not clear though, is it? It's not easy to read.
It
No,
isn't easy
it
to read,
isn't.
no, it's difficult to find. But from that, that's why I then raised a credit note to clear the invoice plus the VAT, raised another invoice without VAT.
Do we need to take some expert advice on this or not?
Well, that's again, it seems clear. It's saying that VAT Notice 742A covers use for a relevant charitable purpose, which it is. This has to be a non-business purpose. Preschool care of young children funded by the local authority is a non-business
it
use.
is. It is.
Sounds clear. Sounds
the
clear.
thing that would concern me, and I can't find it now, I've read somewhere where at the time they were moving in, they
Yeah,
had
but
to
it doesn't say that in here. And this was the letter that she received from HMRC at the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I just wanted to make sure that we knew, we've done everything that we need to be doing.
because I didn't have time to make pancakes tonight, I went on the VAT website. And there one case, which goes back to 2005, which said there was a preschool
Yes.
who didn't want to pay VAT, HMRC obviously wanted to pay VAT, it went to the High Court, and the preschool won.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
Excellent.
So how long have we been charging VAT for? It's just one bill, is it?
For them, it was one bill which I credited, and then
Okay.
it's all been since we first came here.
Right.
That's sorted as well then. My God.
So, have we got to review other VAT inceptions?
Well, did I see on that list that you gave me of the rents for courthouse,
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
there's one of them that says VAT exempt, but we charge them VAT, don't we?
No, I've never seen that until I saw that piece of paper.
Yeah. And I don't think they've got a VAT exemption. That's the museum, isn't
It
it?
is the museum.
Museum Trust.
so yeah.
And I don't believe they've got, because they always quote in the museum accounts, they always quote the rent as 1,700 and something. We always quote it as 1,453 or whatever it is.
1345, I think.
Yeah.
But that document was created in 2003, and I started in 2005,
Yeah.
and that's the first time I've seen that document.
Right.
And I've always charged them VAT.
Right.
So that was another question to be raised, whether we
Yeah.
should be charging the VAT.
Exactly, yeah.
And I suspect if there was a reason why we shouldn't charge them VAT, the museum would have told me by now.
They're not VAT registered, and I'm not aware that they've got any VAT exemption certificate. And in fact, at the last meeting, I mentioned to the treasurer, we're not VAT registered, should we be? And he said, if you're going to talk about VAT, I'm resigning on the spot because it's too complicated.
And that's what literally he said.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly what he said. I shall resign on the spot. I want nothing to do with VAT. So he concluded they're not VAT registered, and as far as I know, they've not got any VAT exemption certificate or anything. So the way we've been doing it, I believe, is correct. But I wanted to bring these up tonight just to really go through and make sure that we are doing.
Well, I spoke to that guy,
Yeah,
Glenn,
Urquhart, yeah,
and he said that charities can get an exemption certificate. They just go online and do it themselves. But
Yeah.
there's only a certain thing, it's only a certain number of things that they can be exempt for VAT,
yeah.
and rent isn't one of them. So that's
He told
yeah.
me he'd never heard of rent
Yeah.
being exempt, but it clearly is in here.
But I know, and then we had this conversation, and you found this,
Yeah.
and there is one there that says it is.
Shouldn't we,
Yeah.
shouldn't we write to the trustees of the museum explaining that we think they can actually get a VAT exemption certificate, which would then save them
Well,
some money?
they could only get it if the business is one of the ones that's exemptable.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we should look into it. And
If it's a
sort of,
charity, it's acceptable,
you know,
isn't
Not, well, I don't think all...
I don't think it's that straightforward.
It's
I
not,
don't.
I don't think
There's no harm in them investigating it.
Right.
Unless the treasurer does resign, in which case that might be a problem. But
Yeah,
I'm
that'll be a big
surprised-
problem.
I'd be surprised why they've said it's exempt on that form that I saw from 2003. You wouldn't just write it down for the sake of it, so maybe
No.
it's worth a question.
I think you should actually say to them, look, you know, we think you might be able to get not be charged VAT, just as a neighbourly thing.
Well, yeah.
Well,
The
that's
other
the fact that we're
thing,
trustees.
three of us sitting around this table are trustees.
And we need a chat, which is a good job we're finishing early, because we could do
And
with
the other
a
thing
half-hour
is-
chat about Museum Trust immediately after this meeting, if we could.
Is there, do they get exemption from business rates? Because I know obviously most charities don't pay business rates, do they?
We must have seen their accounts.
Yeah, I don't know whether they pay it or not.
Well, for example, I looked at the accounts. I was invited to the annual meeting of Volunteer Action last year and was handed their accounts and noticed that they'd made a loss for the year, and a large slice of that loss was the VAT on their rent. I mean, for a start, if they're exempt from business rent being a charity, then we're wrong in charging quite a lot of these people rent in the first place.
Well, I think
Well, when I
they
found out
have
about the
to
preschool
show us
site,
their certificates, and then we don't, charge them rent. But I think we would have to get proper advice.
Yeah, we
before
would.
Then suddenly decide
Yeah,
we
well,
weren't,
yeah.
because of that list
Yeah.
of things
Yeah.
that rent is
Councillor
part.
Peel is right about charities being exempt from business rents. I think it's business rates, not business rents.
Yeah.
Right.
He said rates.
Yes, he said rates.
Yeah.
Well, when I found out that about the preschool, I did go through and speak to Carol and David
Yeah.
and told them, and so that they're aware of it.
Yeah.
If they could do anything about it, they haven't come back to me.
Yeah, they've said the same thing to me, because I brought it up at that meeting. I brought it up in that meeting, that the figure we'd got for rent was a different figure, because we're showing net through our books. They're having to show the gross amount, and the difference was a high proportion of their loss for the year. And it does seem a shame
Yeah.
that they are spending money to us on VAT that they could be better spending to serve the public of Oundle, but there's no way around it.
But they're not paying it to us, are they? They're paying it effectively to the VAT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not gaining from it.
Yeah.
Well, we've gained by the fact that we wouldn't have to give us much of a bigger grant. If
No,
we're
that's
paying
what I'm
less.
saying.
reading this stuff, it does mention the
Yeah.
rents, and there
Yeah.
seems to be a differentiation between whether the rent is for the, if you like, the building or room in the building.
Yes.
The room,
Yeah.
where you're carrying out the business of the
Yeah.
charity.
Yes. But not head
But not
office
their
of the charity.
office,
Yeah.
as it were,
Yes.
Yes.
not the office.
Yes. It went into quite a bit of detail about
I
that.
presume that some of it, whether we choose to pay or not, it depends how you regard the room that you're, that's under question.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, whether yours
I mean,
counts
in
as head
our
office,
case,
because it's the only office.
It's the only office,
Yeah.
you see, and
Yeah.
that would be quite a difficult one to decide.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should get some expert advice on this, rather
Mm.
I mean, well, we spoke to one, and he said
Yeah.
one thing. I don't. That's the problem. I think probably need to speak to. I don't know. I don't know whether it's worth speaking to the Charity Commission.
Might be
Yeah.
worth speaking to them.
Their
Um,
finance
Yeah.
VAT
If
person.
we contact them,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, if we're wrong, they'll probably bill us, but the other people to talk to, the definitive people, will be HMRC.
Yeah. Which
If
scares
they don't
me.
know, nobody knows.
We're talking to HMRC, as I've done it before, with something which I thought was relatively simple.
Yeah.
They won't give you a straightforward answer. They won't give you a yes or no in
No.
case they're wrong. So
Mm.
you end
It
up
might-
be in a
it
position
might-
where
Yeah.
they could question what you're doing. With
Yeah.
It might just be worth talking to Graham at Parson Latham, because we're in the same situation.
Mm.
Mhm.
With,
Yeah.
exempt.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would give you a broad brush, and then if it wasn't sort of, then you could sort of then talk to somebody more on a one-to-one basis, because you knew a bit more information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're another charitable organisation that we've got links with through
Mhm.
councillors being
Yeah.
trustees.
Or another council that is in the same position, but large enough, you might have a bit of this problem already.
Yeah. So I think it's one that, through the clerk, we'll follow up
Yeah. Just
on and see where we get with that. Now, that concludes most of the financial matters business of the evening, unless anybody's got any questions on those items. I'll move on to 1750. Any other business for report only? I'll go round the room. Councillor Chappell.
Yeah.
Councillor Chesser.
No.
Councillor Glenn, no. Councillor Peel.
No,
And I've got nothing. So, with that, I close the meeting at a record
I can't believe
8:17. I don't believe it.